Old Man Frank versus The Commute of Doom, a traffic comedy. Intro, upbeat, slightly chaotic music, quick cuts of frustrated drivers, a GPS showing a sea of red, and finally Old Man Frank looking utterly defeated in his vintage car. Narrator, voiceover, sarcastic but friendly. All right, buckle up, buttercups, because today we're diving headfirst into the daily grind, or rather the daily halt. Meet Old Man Frank. He's not old, he's vintage, and he's about to have his patience tested by the one thing that unites us all in shared misery: traffic. Narrator, voiceover, sarcastic but friendly. All right, buckle up, buttercups, because today we're diving headfirst into the daily grind, or rather, the daily halt. Meet Old Man Frank. He's not old, he's vintage, and he's about to have his patience tested by the one thing that unites us all in shared misery: traffic. Frank, grumbling, traffic. It's always traffic. You'd think they'd invent teleportation by now, or at least flying cars. But no, we're stuck here, bumper to bumper, breathing each other's exhaust fumes. It's romantic, really. Camera zooms in on a dashboard bobblehead dog, its head shaking vigorously. Frank glares at it. Frank, don't you start with me, Sparky. You're not the one with a bladder the size of a walnut. Cut to an outside shot. A soccer mom in an SUV is yelling at her kids in the back. Frank rolls his eyes. Frank, muttering, "Ah, the symphony of suburban chaos, a timeless classic." Relatable story, interlude, quick cuts of various traffic situations, someone picking their nose, a couple arguing, a person singing terribly loud. Overlay text, "We've all been there." Narrator, we've all been there, right? Stuck in traffic, questioning our life choices, wondering if we should just abandon our car and start a new life as a hermit in the woods. It's a universal experience, a bonding moment, a reason to question humanity. Cut back to Frank. Someone lays on their horn behind him. Frank, yelling out the window, dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that insightful contribution to the situation. I was unaware that we were in traffic until you so eloquently pointed it out with your horn. You're a true visionary." He gestures wildly with his hands, nearly hitting the rearview mirror. Frank, you know, I bet that guy thinks he's being helpful. Like he's single-handedly going to clear this whole mess with the power of his horn. Bless his heart. He's probably also the guy who thinks he can merge at the last second and cut everyone off. Comedy sketch interlude. A quick, absurd sketch of a person trying to clear traffic by honking their horn repeatedly. The horn gets louder and louder until it explodes, leaving the person covered in confetti. Narrator, some people just don't understand the futility of honking in traffic. It's like yelling at a brick wall. It might make you feel better, but it's not going to accomplish anything, except maybe annoy everyone around you. Cut back to Frank, looking pensive. Frank, you know, traffic really makes you think about the meaning of life, about the vastness of the universe, about whether or not you remembered to turn off the stove. He stares blankly ahead, lost in thought. Frank, maybe this is all a simulation. Maybe we're all just characters in some cosmic video game and the traffic jam is just a glitch in the system. Or maybe I just need a nap. He yawns dramatically. Frank, I bet those guys in the carpool lane are feeling pretty smug right now. Zipping along, thinking they're better than us. Well, guess what? They're still going to the same place we are. They're just getting there slightly faster. Big whoop. Reflective moment. Slow, melancholic music. Frank looks out the window, watching the world go by. Narrator, traffic can be a great time for reflection, a chance to disconnect from the digital world and reconnect with yourself, or, just stew in your own frustration. It's really up to you. Cut back to Frank, suddenly perky. Frank, all right, folks. I've been doing this traffic thing for a while now, so I'm going to share some of my wisdom. Rule number 1, never make eye contact with the other drivers. You don't want to see the despair in their eyes. It's contagious. He demonstrates looking away dramatically. Frank. Rule number 2, always have snacks. Traffic is a marathon, not a sprint. You need fuel. I recommend something salty and something sweet, and maybe a little something to take the edge off. Winks. Just kidding. Probably. He pulls out a bag of chips and starts munching loudly. Frank. Rule number 3, embrace the absurdity. Traffic is ridiculous. It's illogical. It's a waste of time, but you can't change it. So you might as well laugh at it. He starts laughing maniacally, then abruptly stops. Frank. Rule number 4, if all else fails, start singing, loudly and off-key. It'll annoy the other drivers, but it'll also make you feel better. Trust me. He starts belting out a terrible rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. YouTube video interlude, a compilation of funny traffic videos, road rage fails, animals causing chaos, and people doing ridiculous things to entertain themselves. Narrator. The internet is full of traffic-related humor because misery loves company and because people do some really, really dumb things when they're bored. Cut back to Frank, clearing his throat dramatically. Frank. All right, gather round, children, because I'm going to tell you a story. A story about a man named Bartholomew. Bartholomew was a very important man. He had a very important job, and he was very, very late. He pauses for dramatic effect. Frank. Bartholomew was stuck in traffic. He throws his hands up in the air. Frank. The end! He bursts out laughing. Frank. Okay. I'll tell you a real story. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom ruled by a benevolent queen. But the kingdom was plagued by a terrible curse, a curse that caused traffic jams. He makes spooky ghost noises. Frank. The queen tried everything to break the curse. She consulted with wizards. She prayed to the gods. She even tried sacrificing a goat. But nothing worked. Until one day, a humble jester came to the queen and said, "Your Majesty, I have a solution. We must build a giant trampoline over the traffic jam." He grins mischievously. Frank. And so the kingdom built a giant trampoline, and everyone jumped over the traffic jam, and they lived happily ever after. The end. He winks at the camera. Frank. The moral of the story? Sometimes you just have to jump over your problems. Figuratively speaking, of course. Don't actually try to jump over a traffic jam. You'll probably get arrested. Cut back to Frank. The cars in front of him start moving. Frank, eyes widening in surprise. What the? Is it possible? Is the traffic actually moving? I don't believe it. He rubs his eyes in disbelief. Frank, after all this time, after all the frustration, after all the existential pondering, the traffic is finally moving. It's a miracle. He shifts into gear and starts driving, a huge grin on his face. Frank, yelling out the window, "Freedom! Sweet, sweet freedom! I'm free! I'm finally free!" He drives off into the distance, leaving the traffic jam behind him. Outro, upbeat, triumphant music. Shots of Frank driving down the open road, wind in his hair. Narrator, cheerful. And so, old man Frank escaped the clutches of the dreaded traffic jam. He learned valuable lessons about patience, humor, and the importance of snacks, and he lived to tell the tale. Call to action. Like, subscribe, and share. Narrator. If you enjoyed Frank's traffic adventure, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more relatable comedy, and share this video with anyone who's ever been stuck in traffic. Because let's face it, we all need a little bit of Frank in our lives. And if you have any funny traffic stories of your own, share them in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go build a giant trampoline, just in case.